China and Russia are joining hands, launching one of the world's largest joint military drills. And this comes at a time when tensions between the US and Russia, they have increased.
That has now become a thing of the past, and this war is now in a very different and a very difficult sort of a terrain.
50 of Russia's most advanced T-90M tanks rolled south, while Chinese Marines stormed the Black Sea in amphibious craft. On paper, this should have been unstoppable. Armor on land, fighters in the air, and a full Marine landing force by sea. But within 2 hours, that billion-dollar invasion armada collapsed in chaos. So what went wrong? And how did Ukraine manage to flip overwhelming firepower into a fatal weakness? The answer lies in deception, drones, and one move so unexpected that it turned the battlefield upside down. Let's break down the trap step by step. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now back to the video. The world saw tanks, warplanes, and Marines bearing down on Ukraine. What no one saw was the silence before the trap was sprung. In the early morning haze near Semenivka, dust clouds rose as 50 T-90M tanks began pushing their way toward Ukrainian lines. Each heavy vehicle moved with deliberate confidence, guarded by mine-clearing UR-77s designed to sweep away any hidden obstacles. Engines roared, turrets pointed forward, and the rigid order of the column made it look like a steel fist prepared to crush anything in its path. At the same moment, far to the south, the waters off Mariupol churned as Chinese amphibious craft surged toward the shoreline. Packed tight with Marines and supported from above by J-15 fighters,
China and Russia are joining hands, launching one of the world's largest joint military drills. And this comes at a time when tensions between the US and Russia, they have increased.
this looked like an unstoppable two-pronged assault. To outside observers, it was the kind of strike lifted straight from a military manual, fast, decisive, and aimed at cutting off Ukraine before a proper defense could be organized. From a distance, it seemed certain that Ukraine had been caught unprepared. On radar screens, warning grids that would normally light up went dark without explanation. Surveillance arrays, normally buzzing with signatures, had switched off. To Russian and Chinese commanders, this looked like a gift from the heavens. The path appeared open. No warning beams from Ukrainian radars, no sign of aerial resistance preparing to intercept the J-15s patrolling overhead. To invaders who had been fed years of propaganda about Ukrainian weakness, it looked as if their opponents had already folded. But to seasoned military analysts on the ground, this sudden blackout seemed suicidal, the kind of mistake that can end entire campaigns. That silence was not weakness, it was deception.
Nobody wants that, so one is hoping that an awful lot is going on under the surface, politically and diplomatically.
Nearly invisible at 20,000 feet, American-made MQ-9B drones circled patiently above both fronts. Each drone quietly tracked every move, relaying live feeds back into encrypted Ukrainian channels. What the Russian tank crews thought was hidden terrain had already been mapped from every angle.
Strike Russia where it's not expecting it. It's also a clear indication that Russia is not invincible.
What the Chinese Marines assumed was deserted coastline had been watched for hours. Without broadcasting a single radar ping, Ukraine was able to see everything. The blackout was not a collapse but bait, and the invaders had taken it. On the open steppe near Semenivka, the first mine-clearing units began moving forward. Their job was to shred or detonate any hidden explosives and open lanes for the armor behind them. Explosions from the charges echoed across the dry fields as the UR-7s ripped long scars into the surface. Behind them, the heavy columns rolled in, filling the cleared gaps, convinced the way was safe. At the same time, to the south, the amphibious craft carried wave after wave of Chinese Marines closer to the beaches, their wakes trailing white lines in the blue water. Overhead, Ju-15 fighters maintained an umbrella, daring Ukraine's battered jets to show themselves. From every angle, it looked as if Ukraine had yielded the initiative. That is exactly when the trap detonated. Buried beneath patches of dirt, remotely guided mine robots powered to life. Operators watching from screens far away maneuvered them into the path of the advancing armor.
Drones have been crucial for Ukraine in the war and can now be operated from just about anywhere.
The first heavy tank locked its tracks as the explosion tore through its drive system. Seconds later, another minebot slammed under a neighboring vehicle, ripping off its suspension. The column tried to shift, but the narrow cleared lane funneled them forward into more hidden charges. Within minutes, what had been a confident advance turned into chaos as stalled machines blocked the way, forcing the rest of the column into a compressed kill zone.
That has now become a thing of the past, and this war is now in a very different and a very difficult sort of a terrain.
At sea, the disaster mirrored the land. The first wave of landing craft pushed past the outer line, only to be bracketed by coastal defense fire. Anti-ship units fired with precision, while swarms of small drones dove down at low altitude to plant explosives near the hulls.
He has been blamed by Russia on a Ukrainian drone attack. It was one of a series of strikes on Russian military infrastructure this weekend.
One craft erupted in fire before reaching the beach. Another veered sharply, spilling men into the water as onboard systems failed. From above, the J-15 circled angrily, but saw no enemy jets to engage. Only a storm of missiles, drones, and coastal artillery that never exposed its position long enough to be targeted.
Ukraine has long used long-range drones launched from Ukraine, which then fly into Russian airspace.
Within 30 minutes, formations that had looked immovable were scattered, Marines stranded, and the sea itself glowing with burning wrecks. Instead of smashing through Ukraine's defensive network, the billion-dollar invasion force had walked straight into a kill box. Armor locked in place made an easy target for artillery hidden behind ridgelines. Marines pushed into water without cover made perfect marks for drones circling overhead. Every stage of the assault had been monitored, timed, and exploited. The lesson was brutal. Deception and intelligence gathering can twist overconfidence into a liability.
In July in particular, sort of a steady uptick in the number of these back and forth volleys between Russia and Ukraine,
giving smaller forces the power to dismantle far larger ones. And this was only the opening move. The trap at Semenivka and Mariupol did more than stop a wave of tanks and landing craft. It revealed how Ukraine planned to fight the campaign itself, using agility, technology, and timing to turn offensive strength into collapse within hours. What started as a billion-dollar, multi-domain thrust crumbled in less than 2 hours. Tanks, landing craft, and fighters failed not because of weaker firepower, but because Ukraine weaponized timing, silence, and intelligence into force multipliers.
Its victory in Ukraine is inevitable. This extraordinary operation shows that Ukraine is still in this fight.
Technology did not just level the field, it redefined it. Modern battlefields reward adaptability over sheer mass. A low-cost drone guiding fire can do what millions in armor cannot. Planning and deception tilt the odds. Mariupol and Dnipro prove that future conflicts will favor agility. Stay engaged because these lessons will shape not just this war, but the wars still to come.